Yeah, my problem isn't so much with the right to remain silent, it's with the ability to remain silent. I just don't have it.
Policy push for digital IDs as the new form of government-issued identification credentials. And they're essentially all based on your biometric data, which can be your fingerprints, your face, the iris of your eyeball. And the idea is essentially to collect all of that data and have it housed or have it tied directly to your digital ID. So your physical ID will be mapped to the digital ID. Digital IDs are not really a separate project from CBDCs and this new digital financial system. And UN documentation and also documentation from the Bank of International Settlements, they very overtly state that CBDCs and digital IDs are meant to go together. And without digital IDs, the CBDC digital finance system cannot exist. One of the reasons it can't exist without that is because of the KYC functionality built into this digital financial system. They have the know your customer protocols. They have to know who you are. And so they want to have your wallet tied to a digital ID and have that digital ID be mapped to your physical ID through the biometric data collection. So there's different efforts to make digital IDs either as NFTs, non-fungible tokens. There's also the efforts of Sam Altman of OpenAI and his WorldCoin project, whereby you scan your iris, you give them the biometric credentials of your eyeball, they give you a unique identifier, a digital ID, and it's inherently tied to a digital wallet. That is the same model the UN is using. They've already implemented it for refugees getting food assistance from the World Food Program. It's called Building Blocks. It's on blockchain. It involves refugees scanning their irises, and in order to buy food or receive their rations, they have to check out of a grocery store style place in the refugee camp, and they check out biometrically with an eyeball scan, and then the amount of food they have, the monetary value of that is subtracted from their digital wallet connected to their digital ID and their.
Right about now, I imagine you're thinking, but wait, I'm not a refugee, so what does this have to do with me? And to that I would say, you may not be a refugee right now, and I don't mean to tell you that you're going to be one in the future, but what I will tell you is that it has been said that you will own nothing, absolutely nothing, and be happy by 2030. That's 5 years away. Already we've seen people denied homeowners insurance because of what happened to their home in the first place, and the excuse is being given that it's just too damn dangerous, when really it's probably not. So this is how they're going to get everybody around the country out of their homes, one natural disaster at a time. So, yeah, this definitely impacts you. I'd pay attention if I were you.
Matter what country you're in, or whether you're part of BRICS or part of the collective West, this is being rolled out across the board.
So what entities are pushing this interoperability?
One of the main reasons for this coordinated global push to develop digital IDs is because it's deemed essential to the entire Sustainable Development Agenda, which is the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, also known as Agenda 2030. And the specific part dealing with digital IDs is within SDG 16, which is about building peaceful and inclusive societies. One of the indicators of SDG 16, 16.9, calls for legal identification for everyone in the world from the time they're born, essentially. The leading alliance that was launched under the auspices of the UN to accomplish that is known as ID 2020, and has since been folded into what is called the Digital Impact Alliance, which essentially has the same funders and founders as ID 2020. So ID 2020, the UN and other stakeholders in this particular sphere often argue that the reason this is necessary is because of what they call the identity gap. And the identity gap is the claim that the lack of digital ID is preventing people, mainly the world's poor, from accessing essential services, whether it's banking, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare. They claim the only way for these people to be able to access these services is to onboard them to these identity schemes.
And so I'm going to admit, initially upon hearing this from Whitney Webb, I was a little bit skeptical about what she was saying. But upon researching the World Economic Forum and going through all of their articles, I found that she was 100% correct. And what I'm about to show you is going to shock you. But first, I must let you know that the BlackRock CEO, the FBI, the CIA, all these large technology companies that are going to be responsible for this digital ID system are in collaboration with the World Economic Forum. They're either direct members of the forum or they are literally collaborating with them on these initiatives. Now, one particular initiative that caught my eye and that they talk about very much so on the WEF is the fourth industrial revolution. And more specifically, they posted an article called Accelerating Digital Inclusion for 1 Billion People by 2025. Now, of course, this is put out in a way that seems inclusive, that seems positive, but they actually have much more sinister plans that you guys need to be aware about. You see, they start the article by talking about, how they've improved people's lives and how today there's 2.6 billion people who do not use the internet. But then they go on to say the Alliance is mobilizing cross-sector action to provide affordable and accessible digital solutions across health, education, and financial services. Now, what are all of these health, financial, and educational services? Well, a large part of this is exactly what Whitney Webb is describing, where they are scanning the irises and putting out these blockchain technologies for these impoverished nations. And essentially what they are doing is they are testing this system and modifying and making the system better on this control group. They're basically doing an experiment to ensure that they can push this system forward so that they can start controlling you or me down the road. And if you think that this is impossible to happen in a developed nation like the United States of America, I just tell you guys to go look at what's currently happening in China. Right now, Chinese cameras are able to use AI softwares to scan people's faces if you were, say, jaywalking the street, and then they automatically affect your social credit score and make it so you can't enter into certain grocery stores. This is something that's already happening in other developed nations. That is the second largest economy in the world. So if you think that it's not possible for this to happen in the United States of America, well, you're most definitely wrong. And the way for us to not allow this to happen is really crucial. But first, we need to understand the system more, because Whitney Webb does give some more vital information on what their plans are.
So what they mean by essential services is they say without these forms of recognized identity, people in the world, mainly the world's poor, are unable to access bank accounts, unable to access healthcare, unable to access government services, a variety of things, because they don't have ID or they don't have bank accounts, things of that nature. So in order to allow everyone to access all of these things and include them, hence the frequent word of inclusion in all these documents, they say digital ID is the necessary way to bridge this identity gap.
Do you find those arguments credible, or?
One of the main words they use to market this stuff is equity and inclusion. The idea that we need to include everybody in these new systems. But if you don't participate in digital ID, you won't have a legally recognized identity, you won't have rights, you won't be able to access services without it. So it's being framed as promoting inclusion, but the system itself is inherently exclusionary and has been used to track and surveil people, to link people to, essentially all their activities, what they say online in some of the countries that have rolled this out, and has been used to facilitate human rights abuses. So it's not exactly as inclusive as they like to claim. It's inclusive in the sense that we want everyone equally included in our new system that we're creating, our new control system.
Sorry, it's me again, real quick. I just wanted to point out one real quick thing here, and that's that this has already been used to commit human rights abuses. That's all. This has already been used to commit human rights abuses. We're not guessing. We're not saying it might be used this way. We're saying it's already been used this way. Okay? It's already been used this way.
The UN likes to talk about human rights and how this is ultimately a human rights project and things like that, or how it's empowering human rights, but in other documents of the UN, they refer to human rights not as inalienable rights, which is what most people think of when they hear the term human rights. In some of these UN documents, they refer to human rights explicitly as policy tools, or tools that can be used to basically implement, specific things and mechanisms that ultimately give, greater control over really any aspect of your life that they may want to influence. These guys also admit that the digital ID and CBDC is meant to be the same thing, and there's some very illuminating policy documents in this regard. So for example, there's this one UN document called the People's Money, they call it, and it essentially talks about creating a citizen-centric, SDG-aligned digital financial system, which is obviously the system that we've been talking about. And what they say in there is essentially once your savings and your money is onboarded onto the system, they feel that they reserve the right to access and use your funds to develop and implement the sustainable.
Just in case anybody has any doubt about what she's saying here, she's very clearly saying that once you're a part of this system, your money is their money. Your money is their money. Not their money is your money. No. Their money is their money. Your money is their money. That's all.
So I found this document after going through the United Nations website. It is indeed called The People's Money, and this is publicly available for all of you guys to look at yourself. But I found a few things in this document extremely interesting. There's roughly 60 pages. The introduction alone is about 5 pages, but they make a lot of interesting statements, right? And this is from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and these people are super connected. I mean, we have people from every single 3-letter agency that exists making quotes and talking about this whole idea of the people's money. Now, one thing that I found really interesting throughout this document is the theme of urgency. They say there is an urgent need to return the financial services industry to what it's supposed to be, an industry that serves people. But what they don't seem to like to talk about is how this new system actually gives them a lot more control. It is a classic manipulation tactic. They're saying, this is for you guys. This is in your best interest. You guys need to want this. This is going to make sure that you guys are not going to be taken advantage of. Meanwhile, we're giving all of the power to these very few individuals who have been abusing us for all of this time. I mean, do we really trust BlackRock? They are a member who is frequently attending these meetings. Do we think that BlackRock is going to solve our problems? Do we want to give them more power over what we're doing? But their messaging across this is, oh, this is a historic opportunity combined with unprecedented crises that we're going to solve. And it's just so concerning that they're releasing these documents and talking about this, and people are just shaking their head and saying, yeah, this sounds like a fantastic thing. So Whitney Webb is 100% correct. And I urge you guys to take out and read this document yourself. I will provide a link to this, but first, there's much more important information that Whitney Webb does talk about here. We're really just getting started.
Feel that they reserve the right to access and use your funds to develop and implement the Sustainable Development Goals or build the infrastructure necessary for it. So they essentially think that your money is their money. When COVID was happening, there was this push for vaccine passports, and a lot of the people that were pushing or creating the vaccine passports were part of this, either ID 2020, or they were part of related entities pushing for digital ID. And essentially what happened with the vaccine passport was to link your identity to your travel, to the freedom of movement. And if you didn't have one, you were excluded from entering certain places. So that, again, highlights the idea of how these digital IDs are inherently exclusionary, because if you don't have one, then you're excluded from, moving where other people that have those privileges. And if you don't abide by these various stipulations, you're excluded from participating in those things. And if you look at how the UN sponsored groups like ID 2020 are constructing this, they're trying to hide behind a facade of decentralization and construct digital identity in a way that they call as vendor agnostic, meaning that any private company in theory could develop a digital ID system that people could use. So you'll have a variety of companies or government agencies issuing digital ID, and it will not look like a centralized digital ID, but it will be. Based on what's been developed so far by these entities, it seems like that database is meant to be housed at the World Bank, and it's called ID4D, and is sort of cloaked in the same rhetoric that ID 2020, cloaks their own project, claiming it's decentralized and all of this, but it's a centralized global data set where all these different digital ID systems can export their data to. The World Bank's interesting in the sense that, the World Bank, the IMF, they essentially use a debt slavery model to enforce policy objectives on national governments. And the World Bank has openly said that debt is a critical form of financing for the Sustainable Development Goals. So basically saddle a country in debt, and instead of having it enact austerity policies and things like that, it's to get them to enact digital ID. It's to get them to enact, financial inclusion, as they call it, with the CBDCs and their public-private sector equivalents, things of that nature. So that's how they force nation states to act as these enabling environments for these policies. A lot of it is through debt slavery, essentially.
And then governments are sort of just voluntarily following all that.
The UN very openly views the role of national governments only as enabling environments for these policies. So the national governments aren't meant to develop these policies themselves. They're meant to enforce these policies developed by the UN and their stakeholder partners, groups like the World Economic Forum, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and then enforce those policies on the public. So a lot of people view the UN sort of as a meeting of the different public sectors and governments of the world, but even the UN leadership have admitted that since at least in the 1990s, if not earlier, there was what Kofi Annan, the former UN Secretary General, called a quiet revolution at the UN, where the business of the UN became the businesses of the world, and there was this move away from the public sector to having it emphasize public-private partnership, which is why you have the premier promoter globally of public-private partnerships, the World Economic Forum, being one of the main strategic partners currently of the United Nations. And this isn't free market capitalism, it's crony capitalism, it's cartelism, because these are, fundamentally corrupt players that don't play by the rules. They manipulate the free market to advance themselves and generate more money and become more powerful. And so really this is, a merging of the public and the private sector, but it's the private ones in control, and they operate as a cartel, not as free market capitalists. And that's essentially where we are right now. And this was essentially admitted before Congress by a very prominent figure at the time named Samuel Pisar, who is probably best known now as being the stepfather of current Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. And when he testified before Congress, he talked about the rise of what he called the trans-ideological corporation, where essentially Western capitalists, or a group of them, had decided to cooperate and do business rather with the people that ran state-owned enterprises in the communist bloc, and together build a network of corporations essentially that would become so powerful that they would make the nation state irrelevant. And this is essentially the model we have today.
These policies would include like the CBDCs, the SDGs, and the digital IDs, or?
Yeah, so a lot of these policies are folded into the UN Sustainable Development Agenda or the Digital ID Agenda, and there's different think tanks and different entities that push for these things, but one of the overarching ways this is being forced on the national governments is the Sustainable Development Agenda, the SDGs, which essentially every country in the world has signed on to implement, and even countries that are supposedly against, the West, for example, the adversaries of the West like Russia and China, have issued joint statements about how they agree about Agenda 2030 and the need to implement these things, while the West, the EU, the Biden administration all also agree about those things. It's a global agreement that these particular policies need to be implemented at the global level. I think there's a lot of growing awareness that the UN as the global superpower is problematic for a variety of reasons. But the same people that ensured the creation of the US as the superpower in the post-World War II era are also behind the creation of this multipolar world order that is also being, currently created right now. So after World War II, there was the Bretton Woods situation, which helped ensure U.S. financial hegemony around the world. And currently, we have what a lot of these same actors are calling the new Bretton Woods moment that needs to be seized in order to create a new global financial governance system. And they inherently frame that new system as being multipolar in nature.
And so what I personally believe to be the most concerning part of this whole issue is that both the central bank digital currencies and this digital ID that the UN and the WEF and the IMF are all working together on, they're framing it as something that is decentralized when in reality it is completely centralized, and it gives them complete authoritarian control over your life. And this is something that most people are not even aware is currently happening right now. In fact, 99% of the world population doesn't even know that these organizations exist. They don't even know that these experiments are currently ongoing, and that is why we need to make sure that everybody does see it.
That was Whitney Webb. Now I'd like you to listen to Tucker Carlson.
Economic Forum for you. The WEF is often described as a group of supervillains, but they're also hilariously idiotic. Not just evil, buffoonish. And by the way, they know it. They're smart enough to be embarrassed anyway. The WEF has since deleted its tweet about COVID lockdowns. It has memory holed its promotion of scammer Sam Bankman-Fried. It has conveniently forgotten all about its guidance on Sri Lankan fertilizer, on which it turns out the WEF is not an expert. None of that ever happened. The slate is clean. So we're ready for yet another World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland, which is underway right now. The event kicked off this week with 84-year-old Klaus Schwab, he's the founder of the WEF, promising to, quote, master the future.
We couldn't meet at a more challenging time. We are confronted with so many crises simultaneously. What does it need to master the future? I think to have a platform where all stakeholders of global society are engaged.
Brianna, in honor of the World Economic Forum happening right now in Davos, what would be your favorite insect meal? Plate of crickets?
Crickets are supposed to be legitimately good.
What do you put them on? Honey? Peanut butter?
I think the idea of kind of roasting them so they're crispy with like a salty, hot kind of seasoning would be ideal to me. I don't like the idea of sweet chocolate dipped crickets. That doesn't appeal to me.
You know me, I hate spice. No spice.
I don't know that about you, but I am not surprised.
Aldo here with PragerU. Today I want to talk to you about an interesting subject, and that is bugs. Not just if they're cool and all that stuff, but if you would eat them. Now, this is something I've been talking about recently. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've seen this so-called push for bug-based diets, most notably coming from the World Economic Forum, but it seems to be coming from everywhere. Big news publications, these global institutions that are saying, us humans need to eat bugs in order to save the planet.
Yeah, my apologies. It's me again. You'll notice he said that it's kind of like the push is coming from everywhere. It's like all these institutions within the media and all these corporations, and he's just naming off the list of the same people that we've been talking about all along. And they're all pushing for the same thing. What are they all pushing for? For you to eat bugs. So is it a conspiracy theory? Probably not. Probably not. I'm just saying. All right, I'll let you get back to this now.
I went out on Hollywood Boulevard to ask people about this bug-based diet to see if they would be willing to adopt it, and this is the answers that I got. Check out this clip.
Yeah, I would.
Okay. Would you?
Government said. Yeah. I feel like yeah. If it really made a difference, yeah, I'd try it.
I am so glad you said that, because we actually have some crickets right here, and we have bread that was baked this morning using crickets. So I'm going to bring this over here real quick. Would you be willing to try it? All right, let's see.
I'll try it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'll try it.
I have some crickets here with me behind me.
Oh!
What do you think of? What do you think about when you see this and think that the government wants to put this in your food?
I can't do it. I can't do it.
No, what do you think?
I'm against seeing them alive first.
These crickets were used in making it in the flour. How do these crickets look to you?
Not too tasty.
So that was an interesting time. I don't know about you guys. Would you eat the bugs? Let me know in the comments below. But I want to go a little bit deeper into this discussion about bug-based diets, but more specifically, this push to normalize bug-based diets. Now, after this video went out and I went on Hollywood Boulevard, NPR released an article saying that this bug-based diet was a conspiracy theory being pushed by right-wingers. From 4chan to international politics, a bug-eating conspiracy theory goes mainstream. They say these are just some of the several instances of European right-wing politicians lobbying a conspiracy theory that elites want people to eat bugs. They name me in the article, saying, on March 29th, the conservative video outlet Prairie University featured a man-on-the-street interviews with host Aldo Bodazzoni, that's me, telling passerbys that the World Economic Forum wants you to eat bugs to save the planet. And he calls it a right-wing conspiracy theory. The problem with this conspiracy claim is that the push for bug-based diets isn't secret. It's out in the open, and I have receipts, and I want to go through those now. On July 12, 2021, the World Economic Forum published an article titled, Why We Need to Give Insects the Role They Deserve in Our Food Systems. In it, they say insect farming for food and animal feed could offer an environmentally friendly solution to the impending food crisis. How about on February 9th in 2022, when the World Economic Forum published an article titled, 5 Reasons Why Eating Insects Could Reduce Climate Change. In it, they say insects are an overlooked source of protein and a way to battle climate change. Or the consumption of insects can offset climate change in many ways. So it's not a conspiracy theory, it's right here on the World Economic Forum website. Now I know you're thinking this could just be 2 articles, 2 one-offs by people that work for the Economic Forum. But what about this video on the World Economic Forum's YouTube channel that they published in August of 2019? This video is titled, This London Insect Farm is Changing the Way We Eat, Pioneers for Our Planet. Let's take a look at this video now.
We have automation systems that are modulated and run by themselves 24 hours a day, 365 days a year in any environmental condition, and that's vitally important to feeding a growing population.
Not just for food for livestock and fish, we can eat them too.
Insects are becoming a trend. The Western diet has to kind of shift and change. And most importantly, it's natural, it's normal, and it's the way that we have to feed the future.
I'm sorry, no. No. It is not natural. It is not normal. It is not the way we have to feed the future.
We're facing big global challenges. People don't believe that they can make a change, but you really, really can, because you making a change is the only change you can really make. When it times is by 9 billion people, it makes a fundamental difference to the way that we live in this planet.
So there you have it. The World Economic Forum, they want to normalize eating bugs, and it's right there. It's on their website in articles, it's on their YouTube channel. I find it interesting that they turned comments off on this video. I wonder why. But there it is. They say that the Western diet needs to shift and change, and he says it right there, that this is normal. It's something that we should embrace. And the other underlying part of this whole discussion is they're using fear to try to control and change our ways of life. You know, they say it not only in the articles, but in this video, there's overpopulation, there's an impending food crisis. And it's the same thing that we see with all climate activists. It's not a way to curb climate change or the healthy environment. It's fear-mongering so that they can control populations and change our ways of life. Let's look at other big news publications. And if you don't think that they're actually trying to implement this into our food systems, this is happening right now. I think the claim that this is a right-wing conspiracy theory is not only false, but it's journalistically dishonest. It's out there in the open, and it's interesting that they're trying to gaslight us into believe that this isn't happening. But like I said, just like all these pushes, it's not just hypocrisy, it's hierarchy. All of these elites that are pushing for this are flying around the globe telling us, the common man, how we can reduce our carbon footprint. Meanwhile, they're engaging in the same type of behaviors they say we shouldn't. And so again, I'm not against implementing some of these ideas for our livestock or for animals, but to gaslight us, to try to say that they're not pushing for this, that they're not trying to normalize bug-based diets for humans, is just wrong. And I'm not a betting man, but I would wager the same people pushing for this are not going to be giving up their steak dinners for cricket burgers anytime soon. And you know what? I'm in that category too. If bugs are your thing, go ahead, but don't.
To this presentation, let me just say this. I say this with the utmost love, America. What you're about to hear is said from the heart, and it is said with the utmost love. But it is also said from the brain, because I have taken the time to understand as best as I can these situations. And you need to understand them as best as you can as well. Whitney Webb is a great way to understand them. Look for some more of her content and watch it, not just what you've seen here, but watch some more of it, because she will help you understand this. She's great at that. I'm not. So, if you're ready for this, here comes a little tough love. I can understand not wanting to get involved. You just want to live your own life and mind your own business and be left alone. I can understand that viewpoint. But here's something you have to understand about living in a society. You take advantage of that society every single day. That society makes it possible for you to live in your own little private zone and have your own little private thing. But check this out. As a member of that society, you hold a portion of that society's power. That society needs your power in order to make something happen. Your power has to come into play. So as a member of that society, you have to be willing and able to let your power come into play for the good of the society as a whole. So when society starts moving in a direction, you need to get up and move with them. When society starts moving in a direction that is for its best benefit, we all need to get up and move with it. Our power is in need. Society must use our power, so we must align ourselves with society in those times, because we do not have any other way to keep our society safe but then to align with society. Do you see that? There's no army coming to save us. We are that army. Whether we like it or not, we have no other choice but to align ourselves with the good of society. We have to get up and move when society decides it's time for us to move. Do you understand what I'm saying? We have a responsibility and we have power, but the power that we have rests in our hands, and if we decide that we're just going to sit back and mind our own business, then society has no power, because we have taken our power out of society, but yet we're still drawing off society and everything that society has given us. So what we need to do is realize where we're from and where our power comes from and what side our fucking bread is buttered on. If you want to keep your power and you want to keep your ability to sit there and enjoy yourself, then we have to get up and we have to move and we have to act on behalf of our society. To be clear, our enemy is these corporations. Our enemy is BlackRock. Our enemy are the wealthy elite that are trying to manipulate society through their corporations and through their ability to buy congresspeople and to have laws enacted. Through their ability to do all of these things, they are changing our society one step at a time. Our enemy are these people with money, with lots and lots of money. These people with ridiculous amounts of money, because what they are doing with this ridiculous amount of money is they are changing the laws. They are changing the way our country works. They are changing the way we cannot just sit back. We have not earned the right to just sit back. You don't get a right to just sit back. Your country always has times when it's going to need you. And you're always going to have to defend your freedom. As long as you have freedom, it will need defended. Because there will always be people that want to take it from you. That's never going to stop. You don't earn your right to be free and clear. You're either free or you're clear. If you want free and clear, you have to fight for that. Always. I cannot be more clear about this. America, you are under attack from all directions. Not with bullets, not with bombs, but with policies, with purchases. You're being boxed in by the wealthy. Your ability to buy a home is being removed from you because they are owning everything. They're buying everything up. And they're in control of the banks as well, so they control whether you can actually get that loan to begin with. But they don't need loans. They can just buy something. So they're using that power to their advantage. And they're removing your ability to purchase a home because there's just nothing out there for you to buy that's within your price range. One other way that they're removing your ability to buy your own home is they have made a push to purchase single-family homes. All across the United States, they've been buying up single-family homes left and right and turning them into rental properties. They want you to rent, and they're determined that you're going to do it. They're not leaving you any options. To make it illegal for you to fight back. That will be their last fucking move. Once they've gotten you beat down far enough, they'll make it illegal for you to fight back. You have to recognize that you are at war, whether you want to be or not. Shutting it out and pretending like it's not real doesn't stop the attack from coming. Burying your head in the sand doesn't stop somebody from kicking you in the ass. You understand? Burying your head in the sand does not stop somebody from coming up and kicking you in the ass. It doesn't. Your ass is still exposed. Help it. I just have to add one more thing. Not only that, but with your head buried in the sand, you can't even see who it is. So anybody can just come up and kick you in the ass. And you're just powerless to stop it. Just thought I'd throw that in. So get your head out of the sand. Because you look stupid. Okay? Now, I'm not coming to you today with answers. I don't have the solution. I'm not here to offer you the solution today. I'm here to let you know that you need to be aware and awake to what is going on in your country. You need to be alert. You need to understand that you are under attack. You need to be ready to be vigilant when the time comes. But you need to know that you are actively under attack, and your right to sit there and be in your own little world and not worry about it doesn't really exist. Your country will always need your power. Your power is contributing to the freedom of everyone. Whether you are actively using it or not, your power is part of your country's combined power. It's part of the people's combined power. All comes from each and every one of us and our individual power. So our nation is only as strong as each and every one of us are in our unified decision that we will do whatever it takes to defend our nation and our freedom. That is the bottom line. It's really quite simple. We don't have a right to sit in our own little world. We earn that ability when our nation is not under attack and we've gotten our enemies subdued. When the people that are trying to take our freedom have been beat back and they're, weak and they're not able to attack us, that's when we have the ability to sit back on our asses. We can do that because we've earned it at that point, because we beat the fucking enemy down. The enemy's not, at our fucking doorstep, which is where the enemy is at now. And we have to work our way back to that point where we can sit back and relax again. We're not there right now. We got to work our way back to that. We let things slack there for the last 20, 30, 40 years. We've let shit slack, and these guys have made a lot of headway. They have made a lot of headway in that time. If we want to get back to a place where we can be comfortable on our fucking hands, sitting on our hands, we have to work our way back there. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. We're just not there yet. And let me just add one more thing. The WEF is a huge organization. The WEF has members from just about every country on the planet. This is not a small organization. They have the ability to implement these policies that they're talking about because they have the people already in the governments, already in place. If you don't believe me, listen to Klaus Schwab. He'll tell you himself. I don't want to do anything either. I'm comfy. I've been comfy. I could keep on being comfy. I'm completely comfortable right now. But I know that while I'm sitting back being comfortable, the framework to take away everything that I own is being laid down. I know that while I'm comfortable and I'm sitting back, there are actions being taken to ensure that I will own nothing. Within 5 years, I will own nothing if they have their way.
And I have to say, when I mention now names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. Mm-hmm. But what we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are for our actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
And that's true in Argentina too. Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's true in Argentina as well.
It's true in Argentina, and it's true in France now. I'm with the president, who is a young global leader. But what is important for me of how we can really create, I would say, a new world order.
Second story I want to talk about is a Klaus Schwab video that resurfaced from 2017 from Davos, a conversation with Henry Kissinger. Shout out to Reed Cooley, who posted this on YouTube. I just wanted to give credit. And this is Klaus Schwab saying the words New World Order. So if you say there's a New World Order, that's a conspiracy theory that needs to be banned off and you're crazy. But when Klaus Schwab himself says that he's working on a New World Order, that's just what he's doing. I guess that's what they're doing or thinking about and using governments and corporations around the world to come together to do. But if you notice that they're doing it or you disagree with their policy, then you're like a conspiracy theorist, so they say. Let's take a watch.
Dr. Kissinger, our time, our satellite time is running out. What wonderful opportunity to conclude our week here with such concrete proposals and ideas of how we can really create, I would say, a new world order.
So he talks about a new world order there, and I got banned off of TikTok. One of the videos that they demonetized or they like censored and kicked off was I literally just held this book up. It's called COVID-19, The Great Reset by Klaus Schwab. It's a book. It's not a conspiracy theory. He wrote a book called The Great Reset. Literally, I own it. And I'm going to show you in this book, I highlighted something because I want to, just show people what I've read. You see, I do my homework, I read. Here's what Klaus Schwab or whoever the ghostwriter, Thierry Mullert, whoever.
Real quick, I want to address the use of this buzzword, New World Order. Can we roll that clip over here, please?
Kim, what's on your radar?
Well, everyone is talking about a new world order. What does that even mean? What will the new world order look like? Who will control it? What has been touted as a right-wing conspiracy theory for the past few decades is now just loosely falling out of the mouths of global leaders everywhere. But before we get to the various world leaders touting a new world order, including Biden, Putin, Xi Jinping, the World Economic Forum, and others, let's talk about the people claiming it's a big conspiracy theory. The Anti-Defamation League categorizes the phrase New World Order under extremism, terrorism, and bigotry. They define it as, quote, a term used to refer to a right-wing conspiracy theory that became popular among anti-government extremists from the 1990s onwards. New World Order conspiracists believe that a tyrannical socialist one-world conspiracy has already taken over most of the planet and schemes to eliminate the last bastion of freedom, the United States, with the help of collaborators within the government. Through repressive measures, as well as manufactured crises such as terrorist attacks and pandemics, the globalist conspirators seek to eliminate dissent and to disarm Americans so that the New World Order can move in and enslave them. New World Order conspiracists also commonly believe that hundreds of concentration camps have been built in the U.S. ready to house dissenters, that the government will declare martial law, possibly on a pretext such as responding to a terrorist attack, and that the government will engage in mass gun confiscations. That sounds nuts, right? But if we rephrase it with fewer charged words, for example, let's replace tyrannical and socialist with authoritarian, change enslave with control, and swap out putting dissenters into concentration camps with something like silencing them on social media. It suddenly doesn't sound that insane. During the pandemic, many of us lost our freedoms, and in the recent era, we've seen dissenters put in jail, like Julian Assange and various protesters. Now, despite the ADL claiming the idea of a New World Order as a conspiracy theory touted by conspiracy theorists, interestingly, numerous world leaders have been throwing the idea around. If you remember, just a few days ago, Biden was talking about a New World Order forming. Here he is.
You know, we are at an inflection point, I believe, in the world economy. Not just the world economy, in the world. It occurs every 3 or 4 generations. As one of the top military people said to me in a secure meeting the other day, 60 million people died between 1900 and 1946. And since then, we established a liberal world order, and that hadn't happened in a long while. A lot of people dying, but nowhere near the chaos. And now is a time when things are shifting. There's gonna be a new world order out there, and we've got to lead it. We've got to unite the rest of the free world in doing it. So anyway.
Now, immediately, elite media rolled their collective eyes and said, oh, great, his innocent use of a phrase is just fodder for conspiracy theorists. Okay, maybe. But then, just these past few days, the World Government Summit convened in Dubai. It's a summit similar to the World Economic Forum. In fact, the two organizations are closely tied, and the key organizers are also members and young global leaders within the WEF. The two organizations are similar in that they both gather together the rich and the powerful to discuss the world's problems and how to solve them. This one is put on by a group of Emirati government officials. And this year's 2022 summit took on an eye-raising title.
And the title of this session, are we ready for a new world order?
Well, even Klaus Schwab ran a commercial at the summit touting a new world order. Take a look at this.
سرعة التغيير القادمة أكبر بكثير مما نتوقع.
I see a future where the internet is available for free for everyone, and that means the location of power is going to shift. Decentralization of power structures everywhere may be the beginning of that shift in finance, in political power.
We have to uphold our responsibility, which we have towards the next generation.
Okay, so now we have Joe Biden, Emirati leaders, and Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum all talking about the new world order forming. What next? Well, it turns out the Chinese and the Russians have been talking about it as well. In fact, the two nations just got together yesterday and declared that they're building a new democratic world order together. And now I just want to say that as much as I find much of the propaganda spewed by mainstream media false regarding these two countries, one thing is accurate. These are not free nations. They crack down on dissent, jail dissidents. China even controls how many kids you can have. A new world order run by these two sounds a lot like what has been touted by the people labeled conspiracy theorists. Yet here we are. And with China buying out everyone in every industry, it raises concerns as to how much influence they have over the world. I think it's time to pay attention to the conspiracy theorists, especially as Russia and China force the world away from the petrodollar and into the new petro-ruble or petro-yuan. Imagine a new world order under China. Would it be a tyrannical socialist world using repressive measures, eliminating dissent and disarming its citizens? Would there be concentration camps housing dissenters? Doesn't sound so nuts anymore now, does it? And though I do think China and their ability to buy up influence is a problem that we should be addressing, I'd like us to think of another possibility. There's a possibility that a new world order isn't run by any government at all. We've seen transitions from monarchies and dictators to democracies, but maybe the next iteration isn't a government run by the people, but a technocracy instead, or at least run by big corporations in conjunction with big tech. Now, we've seen the power big tech has had on nearly every aspect of our society. They've been able to ban the president of the United States, deplatform and censor news. Bill Gates has an enormous and disproportionate influence on vaccines and healthcare. Twitter and Facebook control narratives. We're all reliant on Amazon, and Jeff Bezos even owns the Washington Post. Is it possible that the next iteration of a world order is run by big tech and not by power-hungry politicians? I'm not sure how it would work exactly, but I think this unknown is maybe what's possibly freaking global leaders out. It's possible these powerful elites are hosting numerous global summits about the future of the world because they're scrambling to hold on to power in an era when so much is slipping away from them to big tech instead. It's just a thought. But clearly one thing we know is things are changing and shifting, and the unknown is frightening. And apparently it's not only frightening to the conspiracy theorists, it's frightening to global world leaders as well. So I think there's really no doubt that things are shifting. We're seeing it happen right now with this war. It's dividing up the East from the West. We've also seen over the last few years the power of big tech. I don't know what this new world order is going to look like. I'll let you guys take a stab at it. I mean, what do you think? Or do you think it's just a big conspiracy theory and everything will be the way it's been, nothing's really going to change?
Well, no, things are definitely changing, and they can change for the worse. And I have a lot of concerns about many of the things you raised. I mean, I'm equally, if not more, concerned about hegemony of China and Russia, them working together. Yeah, I do not want either of those countries to replace the U.S. as the global world power, the global standard. That would result in human rights abuses, free speech abuses, political abuses that are far worse than those occurring under the U.S. I guess and this isn't to disagree with you, because you pointed this out in your radar, that it's while there are kernels of truth to many conspiracy theories, what the really intense people who claim the New World Order, what they mean is all of these forces, like there's a man behind the curtain, or there's many men behind the curtain, right? They're all meeting at a secret meeting. Not the people behind the political leaders and the corporate executives. They all get together and they all worship Satan, and they're all like having orgies with children, and they decide to like do evil thing. Like that level of it is not true, because as we see, many of these forces are actually at odds. Like we're at odds with China. The true New World Order conspiracy theorists think us and China and like everyone, the people in charge of everything are getting together and high-fiving and that kind of thing. And that part of it is going too far, because a lot of these forces are at odds with each other. But that doesn't mean you're wrong about the dangers of evil forces, or forces that want to restrict our freedoms, seizing opportunities like the pandemic, like terrorism, like other things, to further restrict our freedoms. It's a huge concern.
Just got to stop this right here, and I got to say, does it really matter if they're Satanists? Does anybody really care what the hell their religion is? Is what they're doing not bad enough? Do we have to throw Satanism on top of it? I mean, don't we have enough right now that we could really just forget about all that? I mean, do we really need to muddy the waters with Satanism when we've got them red-handed with all this other shit? Do we really need to even worry about that right now? I think that's overshooting a little bit. I think that's... We're trying for too much here. We're going a little bit outside the realm of shit that we need to really worry about. Can I just throw that in there? I really don't think that's where we need to be focused. I'm not saying that it's okay to be a Satanist. I'm not saying it's not okay to be a Satanist. I'm saying I'm not worried about Satanists right now. I'm worried about my government, and I'm worried about these motherfucking rich people. I don't give a shit about Satanists right now. And I don't care that these other two groups happen to be Satanists. None of my business. That's not what I'm talking about right now. I hope I made that clear. I'll let it go back now.
Because there was a particular set of conspiracy theorists who had this satanic kind of notion about this secret global new world order that was going to be formed, doesn't mean that as an entire globe we have to retire the phrase new world order. Like, there is a world order, and like Biden, I think he said it fairly well, every 3 or 4 generations you do get a new world order. After 1990, when the Soviet Union collapsed, that created a new world order, because there was no longer this kind of superpower against superpower, with China figuring out what its role was. There was a different world order before World War II. There was a different world order before World War I. There will continue to be different world orders. And when there are new ones, there will be new world orders.
I want a new world order based in universal free expression rights, political freedoms, property rights, accountable, limited democratic government. That would be a great new world order. But that's what we're going to get.
Right, and I don't think we can go retcon the old one and say, well, they predicted concentration camps in the United States, and now we're getting tech censorship, so that's kind of the same. I don't think those are
prisons
comparable things. Well, if they predicted mass incarceration, yes, we definitely have mass incarceration. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I will point out about world orders, past world orders, current world orders, and future world orders, it's all based on who has the money. So if you hold the money and you've got all the riches, then you're the one who gets to be in power. And I think where this becomes more of a conspiring, sort of, I guess, thing going on, not necessarily to the level that, some of the conspiracies that you're talking about, but the fact is that you've got a lot of very powerful governments and people buying up industries or heavily investing. So even though there are some that are at odds, like we see the U.S. government being against the Chinese government, and the governments run very differently. China is much more controlled of its population. That to me is I wouldn't want to live like that. But the fact of the matter is that the Chinese have been able to buy up a ton of influence here in the United States. They own a lot of farmland. They own investments into nearly every single industry we have. And we've seen that play out. We've seen it play out publicly on the stage, such as the NBA, right, where they can't criticize certain things because they're so heavily they're so heavily reliant on China. So that is where it does become there's these actors inside of even our own government or our own ecosystem here in the United States, big money players that are taking money from these others, and they are in a way then kind of colluding to make more money, right? They're all in bed together to just keep enriching themselves, and that is where
But
they
they're
do
not
become
meeting at the
aligned.
League of Doom headquarters, right, to worship Satan and do all the...
If I could offer a moment of clarity on this, that would really surprise me, but I'll give it a shot. If I could offer a moment of clarity on this, I believe what they are trying to say is, while there are big players making big moves, smaller players get brought along with it. And so, while these smaller players may not be a part of the overall plan, they sometimes get to tag along. And they sometimes get brought along because certain things get normalized. And so, whenever you start to open the doorway to Pandora's box, shit starts flying out and you lose control. Well, that's kind of what this is. This is where shit is starting to fly out and we're starting to lose control. That's what you're seeing happening here. If I could just throw that in there.
Right, maybe not that, you know. I don't know. I don't know either way. I don't think so, though.
Although one perhaps relevant amendment to that is that who has the guns also matters, and often has mattered more.
Yes.
The Persian Empire, for instance, had all of the money. They were the richest empire on the planet at the time. These barbaric Europeans had all the guns and had better military tactics.
There's a great scene in, I think it's the premiere episode of the second season of Game of Thrones, where Littlefinger is talking with Queen Cersei and says, knowledge is power, because he has all the knowledge. And she says, no, power is power. And she orders her guardsmen to behead him right there. And then she says, no, I changed my mind. No, you don't have to. It's a little demonstration that, you have a lot of influence and money and wealth, but I have the legitimate use of violence on my side.
China's going to find out how much their store of treasury bills is worth if it really comes to a conflict for her. But
That's why also China doesn't arm their population. And then, so now you're getting into the territory of why so many of the, in the New World Order, the conspiracy theorists by the ADL say a lot of it is to disarm the population because a disarmed population has less
And
power.
now you're
against
sounding
the
like one of
government.
the right-wing libertarian people. We need an armed citizenry, Kim. That's something I believe.
Hey, listen, I'm a Second Amendment person. That's one thing that where I deviate from the left from is I've always been much more of a Second Amendment person.
U.S. is really slow-walking that disarming of the population thing.
Yeah, that's true.
We have like 30 guns for every person at this point. So.
All right, well, thank you very much, Kim, and we'll have more Rising right after this.
Without being dramatic, let me just lay this out here. I can keep being comfy if I want to be, but in 5 years the price tag is going to come due for that comfort. And the price tag that we're being asked is everything that we own. What they're asking in exchange for us sitting back on our hands for the next 5 years is everything that we own. Do we want to give up everything we've spent our lives working for so that we can be comfortable for the next 5 years? Or would we rather be comfortable for the rest of our lives and fight a little bit now? I think the answer is pretty clear. I'll let you be the judge. I truly think they've got us all wrong. They think that we're going to sit back and we're going to do nothing about this. That we're just going to sit on our hands and let this whole thing happen to us while they take everything away from us. And we're going to sit back and just say, oh, well, I guess that's just the way it's going to be. Maybe in some other country, but we're Americans. That's not who we are. We stand up and we fight for ours. We don't let people come in and take our shit. Hell no, we don't. Nobody comes in and takes an American's shit. Are you out of your mind? No, that's not the way it works in America. That's not what being an American is. We stand up for our freedom. We stand up for what's ours. That's what America is. That's who we are. In case anybody forgot, that's who we are. Welcome to America. We stand up. We fight. the answers. But what I do know is that we have to be ready to stand up as a nation and tell these World Economic Forum and globalist bastards that we are not giving up our freedom, and that we are not going to eat bugs, that we are not going to own nothing, and if we don't think that we're happy, we're going to fucking say something about it. And it's their job to come back and make sure that we are happy, because we pay our taxes, and we do our job, and we've earned that right. We have a right to be happy. But what we don't have is a right to sit on our ass while our nation gets flushed down the toilet. We don't have that right. Now let's go out there and get what's ours before these bastards take every last bit of it. Okay, America? I'm ready. Let's do what we've got to do. Let's tell them no. We don't think so. I've just got one last message for you. Please, share this video with somebody else. Thank you. Have a great day. I just want to give you a few final thoughts and kind of try to finish out on a positive note. First off, let me say thank you if you made it all the way through this. God, I know this was a long video and I apologize. I hope it held your attention at least. I do want to apologize about the quality of the video. It was not originally supposed to be an hour-long video, and I don't have access to the same tools that I had before to make videos, so things are a little bit harder now as far as making things look crisp and clean and getting art taken care of and everything else. It's a little bit more complicated now without my iPad. But at any rate, I hope this video resonated with you. I hope you understand that we're only as powerful as our unity. The people are only as powerful as they are united. And every last one of us is one of the people. And so all of our power works together. But there is no people if we're not all people. You know, if we're not all willing to throw our collective portion of authority and power behind the rest of the people when they need it, then we're not really part of the people. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, this was a long video. I'm sure you're tired. I'm tired too. So I'm gonna wrap this up right here, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Thank you for your time.